Hi, I am Chad Anderson of Filmmaker U, filling in for Gordon Burkell. At Filmmaker U, we create courses for film professionals to deepen and diversify their skill set. You can learn more on filmmakeru.com or follow us on Instagram at filmmaker_u. Every week, we interview a film professional, and this week we are pleased to be joined by director and cinematographer Dana Gonzalez, whose work includes episodes of Pretty Little Liars, The Handmaid's Tale, and most recently, Fargo. Welcome to the show, Dana. Thank you so much for joining us today. I first
Thank you
want to
so
ask
much.
I first want to ask about your you started doing cinematography work or DP work for Fargo, and then in the fourth season you've transitioned into doing directing work. What was that transition like for you to be behind the scenes or more in the the less in the to be moved into the director's chair? Was that a challenge? And what was it like going into it, knowing that you've had several seasons of Fargo to be watching what other directors have done?
Well, definitely Fargo is like my home show, and I've been on it since the beginning and have a firm understanding of it, and a intimate relationship with Noah Hawley about what he likes and his thoughts, and the aesthetics of directors. And I've asked in those first three seasons before I directed, like, when he liked a director or didn't like a director, or he liked a certain episode more than others. And so I always ask those questions of what made those successful versus, something that he maybe thought wasn't as good as it could be. Even though
Sure.
they've all been great. There's always, things. And so, that was an insight into that was a really important insight to hear, him say something like that director just shot the script, and that was a problem. Like, not a problem, but he he wishes there was more. He wishes that director would, elaborate on the material, elevate the material. I mean, the material is very elevated in its writing. It's incredible. You still have to kind of like, you know, bring secondary subtext, all these things forward. So, it was good to have that relationship. I had already directed before I did season four with on other shows, Legion, and I think Chambers and Pretty Little Liars, and so I already had definitely experience at directing. And Fargo, far as, like I said, my kind of intimate relationship with the show and understanding how you cut drama, comedy, drama, sometimes in one or two cuts, and also that it's easy to go all dramatic, or it's easy to go all comedic in those scenes. So you have to really find that happy place, because it all adds up, like, especially in television. Like, every day is a monumental amount of screen time. So, like, you literally do a couple scenes, and could be 12 minutes of screen time, could be whatever. And so it's like those choices you make of on a show like that, where you just forget the comedy a little bit. You just go, you do all drama, all of a sudden it changes the tone and the texture of the show. So, that I always considered that to be a successful trait of directing the show. And I thought the directors that who did the best jobs always kind of balanced that nicely.
Yeah.
And believe me, it's easy with on a show like that when you have characters as big as they are to make it all goofy or comedic. So it's pulling back, it's pushing for more. It's not for everybody, that tonality of a show like Fargo. So definitely my um, experience with the show, is greatly helpful.
I've been a camera person for 30 years, and I fell in love with cinema. I heard there was free film school in France, and I wanted to get into the French film school. I really didn't know anything at the time, but I knew at least how to take pictures. So I said, I'll try for the image department. And then when I miraculously got into the French Film School, I fell in love with working with the camera. You're following what's going to be in the movie. So that immediacy that the camera allows is what I loved from the beginning. I'm Kirsten Johnson, and this is my course about documentary cinematography.
Yeah, it's interesting for characters like that, because a lot of the characters throughout the seasons have been larger than life, and you want to take advantage of their the comedic timing and those kind of things, but you also want to not make it slapsticky and make it something that you care about. So there is like a really careful balance in that. You mentioned about the script, about some directors just approaching the script and just kind of doing the script. How do you approach a script under that idea that you have to be kind of true to the script and it's great writing, but you also want to put your own kind of artistic flair in it? What do you look at when you read through a script of an episode?
Well, you have to understand, like, read the script, understand it, understand what the scenes are about, and then kind of like not have to look at it again too much. I mean, it's obviously there's the dialogue, and things like this, but you really have to kind of embrace, does it need a different location that's written? Sometimes, it's just a different location will open up the entire scene and give it more, with the meaning of the scene. Is there, again, because I a show like Fargo that I know so well, I'm able to draw, like if I'm doing episode 6, I'm able to draw on the entire season, kind of like, oh, this character, this secondary character could shine in this scene that's not really written perfectly for them, or they could be kind of introduced in the scene a little stronger than it's written, because they have a place there because of where they're going and where they've been in the show. An episodic television, it depends. You come in on a later season. Have you seen every season, every episode of that show? Have you seen every season of the show? Do you know those characters inside and out? Sometimes you do a lot of kind of homework, and but I think regardless of just the Fargo of it all, I read the scripts, and I kind of start visualizing things when I read the script. I'm a visual person naturally because of my cinematography background, but then and that's probably why I became a director, because I kind of always visualize the scene in a certain way, which I didn't realize was kind of more what a director does than than a cinematographer. And that's why I think people pushed me into cinematography, because I always saw a clear cut kind of location where this needed to be, and then how it'd play out in that location, and how to elevate the kind of storyline or story point or plot, by being there. And like I said, you kind of, sometimes I don't look at the script all day. I'm directing, and I really just don't look at the script again, just because I know it inside me, and I'm kind of living it a bit more. So where I definitely worked with people that are constantly looking at the script, and and that's, I think, the difference between just shooting the script and kind of like embracing what's happening in the scene. And then there's to me, in filmmaking, the unknown and the discovery are the most important. They're the funnest things. It happens on every show. I don't care what it is. There's discovery. There's an actor brings something to the table. A location brings something to the table. Someone else brings something to the table. Something happened. It just, that's the beauty. And you're like, oh my God, there it is. There's something that's important. There's something that's great. And then all of a sudden you're off the page a bit, but you're still kind of celebrating, what the scene is about. Now, I don't know if every showrunner is looking for that. I mean, there's definitely shows that have, verbatim dialogue for sure, like, an Aaron Sorkin type scripts. Sure. And those probably fall in line a little differently because of the way that snappy dialogue is, where, Fargo there's a lot of room there, I think, to like interpret how the dialogue could be played out, or where it could be played out, slow it could be played out, so I wouldn't say that works for everything, but I know that because of, I think, maybe my indoctrination to directing is a little bit more like that, where I look at a script and Handmaid's Tale, I think I did a lot of that as well, where I thought about the characters and thought about where they were in season 5, and working with some season 5 on a show like Handmaid's Tale, the actors are just outstanding and
Sure.
kind of know their place, know who they are, know better than I can ever. So it's like, maybe celebrating it a little bit as an audience member. I always think about the audience. I always think about how the audience will interpret this, and like what will make the audience excited. So that's another thing that's not necessarily on the page.
Yeah. Yeah. We previously spoke to Steve Stark and Kim Todd, and one of the aspects of this was the cast that you've been able to get in Fargo has been so amazing, and it's kind of nice to like let them breathe a little bit and have that creative, like, hey, they want to go in this direction, and now it changes not the script, but changes how the scene is shot, because of what they bring to the table. You've had a amazing cast over the years, and it just keeps getting better and better each season. I wanted to ask a little bit about your background, about how you got into cinematography. You kind of said that you were kind of drawn towards cinematography because of your ability to visualize a script. What was the early days of figuring out, like, oh, this is something I'm good at, this is something I want to do? What was there an inciting incident that said, hey, this is where I want to go and this is what I want to do?
I started out as a camera assistant. I started out basically as a PA and on a show, and that job turned into a camera assistant job. So I was a focus puller for about 13 years. And so I'd worked with a lot of different people and a lot of different things, commercials, features, mostly features, and not a lot of television, a little bit of television. Actually, I worked on a very good television show called NYPD Blue. That was the number one show at the time. I was the head focus puller on that show for a season and a half. And so I seen all these things, and but for some reason, once I learned how to be an assistant and a good assistant, I was just, I was being drawn to, like, I want to be the DP. I want to make images. And so I worked towards that. And I think that, that became my goal, and I reached that goal. And then really kind of people started, like I said earlier, people started saying to me that I was, some of the things that I was asking and thinking about and pushing for were more directorial, where I never read a book with it that's, said what a cinematographer doesn't do, does do, or, so I just always thought to me, cinematography was about emotions and having the audience feel something, like, and that maybe is more directorial, but I always think that cinematography has a lot to do with that. Sure. But to do that successfully, you really need to know the story. You really need to know, how the audience should feel at a certain time. And so when you think that way, you're naturally pushing for, let's if we could put the scene in this place and put the actor in this place, and there's a certain thing that sets up that drama and that imagery and that emotion. And then, and I think if that's just kind of like what you do day in, day out, all of a sudden your people are noticing you, and they're saying, you should direct, and then, you do it the first time, especially in television, and you either like it or don't like it. It's a lot of new challenges, a lot of people asking you a lot of questions. You're as a director, you're making a lot of decisions that you live and die by. And then you complete the episode, and it either does really well, the showrunners like it, the producers like it, or it fails. So whereas a cinematographer, you could fail a little more quietly,
Sure.
in a way, and so I think, and I don't think everybody wants that challenge. So it's like I said, like once you do it, and then you go, you know what, I like this, or and I'm okay at this, I'm good at this. I think you realize there's a lot more to learn. Like I think there's a lot of people that haven't directed that are on a show as script supervisor, DP, whatever, stunt coordinator, and then they direct, and they, you understand the ingredients of the job, but when you're doing it and now you're directing actors, now you have to ask an actor to, hey, can you play it this way, or can you do it this way, or especially a bigger actor, seasoned actor, like, those are big challenges.
Sure.
So the better you get at that, then the better you're going to get as become a director.
I think it's interesting that you mentioned NYPD Blue, because I think as a camera assistant or a focus puller, because of the D'Arte style, I feel like NYPD Blue must have been a really challenging thing to kind of cut your teeth on. It kind of puts your feet to the fire, really, in terms of the pacing and the amount of camera movement in there. In terms of Fargo, though, season 4 takes place in the 1950s. From a cinematography standpoint, did that impact or affect how you approached the filmmaking process, the setting the time period right and working with the time period in terms of lighting and color and those kind of things?
No, absolutely, 100%. Yeah, to me, when you're going to do period, again, you have to emotionally set it up. You have to set it up to put people in that space, in that world, instantly. And like, you don't want them to, I don't want them ever to be like second guess, or I just want to keep them in that place where, like, when they tune in, they're in another world. It's like we're world building. Every season of Fargo, we're world building. So I don't want it to just be like shot in a modern way, and it's a period story and people are wearing period clothing. I want it to live, breathe, and period as much as I humanly can. And we do that with texture and colors, and then there was a certain different lensing we did in season 4 than the other previous seasons, just because the period probably lend itself a little bit more to period. There were some longer lenses used, things like that we stayed away from on the first 3 and even the 5th episode, fifth installment. Just because I think it helped the locations, helped the exteriors, just kind of drew in, made the world a little more collapsed, and especially with the money we had and things like that. So yeah, I mean, season 2 of Fargo's period, the 70s, and that was another, sure, color and texture, very important, in color of lighting, color of wardrobe, color of oranges and stuff, greens and stuff like that were really, there was less color, believe it or not, like in the 70s, in a weird way. Like the color palette of things, of cars, for instance, or there was maybe 5 colors, 6 colors. There's just less colors. Now there's way more choices. So like, sure, it's like honing in on that, and then again, bringing the audience naturally feels like they're in that place.
Interesting. I'm curious, from a director standpoint, a show like Fargo, knowing that in some cases, I know in some shows, the script may be continue to be revised or written, or future episodes are coming. How far ahead do you know what's happening in a season? Like when you make an episode like episode 4 or episode 5, do you know what's happening in episode 11? How much foreknowledge do you have to set that up?
Yeah, there's Noah is always, he's a prolific writer, and the scripts tend to be written earlier, and if they weren't, there'd be a strong kind of treatment Bible to where the character's going, so you have that, and but I still think that it's developing a bit, and as you go on, when it's written, and then all of a sudden there's certain actors cast, and then all of a sudden maybe some of those actors become very interesting and you want to see a little bit more of that character. Those things start becoming, you start writing to that a bit more. You start doing a few more extra scenes to bring them into the story, and then, we have things like, we have budgetary concerns that happen sometimes that we have to alter the scripts because it's going to take 2 more days to shoot that episode than we have the money for. So then we have to kind of course correct on that way, and then you're just kind of like looking at the plot and like you got to keep the plot points alive because those have to continue to get to, there's plots in episode 6 that land more in 10, right? Episode 10 or 9. So, that's a little bit of a movable thing. I think that happens in all of television. You have these aspirations to do these big scripts and you just sometimes can't do them. So, you are starting to make choices of what's the most important, what's the most interesting, things like this.
Very interesting. I want to ask you, and I hope you remember, because I've just been rewatching season 4 again. In the middle of season 4, I want to say episode 5 or 6, which you directed. There's the scene of the attempted killing of Satchel by Antoon. Antoon takes him down to the rock, and points out to where he scratched his name into the rock and leaves him there. And there's this really fascinating scene from a camera angle point of view of Antoon at the top of the stone stairway there, looking down upon him, and the cuts there are just kind of magical in a way. Do you remember that scene, and do you remember what it was like producing or directing that scene?
Yeah, no, that
it's such a powerful scene to me.
Yeah, thank you. That episode, I naturally kind of told the Antoon character, that I told the actor, and like, this is like your episode, and I kind of let him know that just like I'm going to be leaning on him the whole episode, leading up to that moment, because like to me that was like he was showing his true self. He turns on the family, and gets killed, because he doesn't kill the boy, and then that location with that hole and everything, and just the innocence of Satchel, so like I think what you're tuning into really is that that actor just did so amazing, because he was living it, like just the whole episode, like so it wasn't just like, okay, now we're in this scene, this is what's happening. He really got there, and I really pointed that out, before we even started shooting the episode, because I really wanted to bring him to that point. And I think even our schedule when we shot that versus what we did before that, it was important to me because I know that's what I think makes that scene special and magical, and you buy it. You really buy his, who he is and what he's been forced to do to assimilate like everyone else has done in the entire season. So I think that's what makes it, and I think that's what you're responding to. Those are things that that you set up and hope that happen that way, and you feel that way, and and I think the angles and the pacing of it on the day is kind of dictated by that feeling that was created, because you run with that and you respond to the emotions that actor is putting out. So I think it's a big picture thing that I think about early on.
Interesting. Are there, because I think there's, maybe because of the time period, maybe because of the subject matter, maybe because of the presence of so many Italian mafia gangsters, I immediately go back to The Godfather. And so I'm seeing correlations between The Godfather, and that might just be a film buff background. But are there inspirations that you pick from films or TVs that you hope to either to emulate or to avoid, because you don't want to come off that way?
Yeah, I mean, look, as season 4, Godfather, like everybody, actors, it was like it's like the book you read. It's like the
Yeah.
playbook. It's like, right, and it's like the gangsters go to the Godfather to learn how to be a gangster, and so you have to bring it back constantly, and even me, other directors, the actors. You don't want to go too far that direction with the accents and how it's Godfather is such a strong code of honor for the gangsters. Like it's like you can't avoid it. But that's a serious drama, and then like we talked about earlier, like the minute you interject the levity and the comedy in it, you kind of jump that out of it a little bit. We're always talking about different films. I mean, luckily we on Fargo we're able to talk about Coen Brothers films because we always pay homage to all their work, not just Fargo. There's so there's a lot of that, and we're able. So we have Miller's Crossing, for instance. So that's so that was our that was a bit of our mid-ground comedy quirk playbook a little bit. So right now we're doing Alien, and so we're doing the based on the movie. So we have that as our playbook, but I think Godfather versus season 5 is like, it's a touchy one, but it's there. It's absolutely there. It's 100% there. And it was there every day. It was there every scene. And it was literally like talking about what worked, what didn't work, and things like this.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I've been catching, now more, I've been catching, lines that are, paraphrasings of lines from Raising Arizona in seasons. When I catch random, I'm like, oh, that's the same kind of, interaction that Nicolas Cage had with in that. And so I do see a lot of the Coen brothers in that. And I think that it is attributed a lot to Noah's writing, because he's just so in tune with that style there, that approach. If we're talking about translations or adaptations or revisions, I have to ask, and this might be a weird one. Can you tell me about The Toxic Avenger and what it was like doing cinematography for Toxic Avenger?
Yeah, no, it was an exciting project that when it kind of came across my desk, number one, Macon Blair, the director, writer, is such an interesting guy to me, as an actor and his career. And then when I talked to him, I basically, I had in this meeting, I said, it's kind of like, reminds me of the movie Kick-Ass in the world of the conformist. And he understood that. And he actually said he used some shots from the conformist, some frames for his lookbook. So that was like a ballsy thing to say, like that either gets you the job or doesn't get you the job. And but I just felt that way. And we were going to Bulgaria to shoot it. And the good thing is there's not a place. It's not like this is Chicago, Illinois. It's kind of set in a ambiguous kind of place. And so we were able to do that. And I haven't really studied the original, because it just wasn't, there's definitely, again, he did the things like you talked about it, where Noah does with the Coen brothers kind of universe. And there's definitely homages and all these things in the movie that revert back to the original, that the fans. Trauma. At the Fright Fest and Beyond Fest, the two festivals that played, it was, people were freaking out. I mean, they sold out shows. Fright Fest was like 6 sold out screenings. Beyond Fest was like 3, and these are like people that were just rabid fans. And I think he did a great job. Macon did a great job at bringing that in. Yet he brought in some current affairs elements to it, and then I kind of brought to it this. I want to kind of pay homage to like Wim Wenders and like An American Friend, this kind of photography and set, and then like I said, in Bulgaria, we got to like utilize some of its Eastern European and like Russian kind of architecture and flair. So it was yeah, it was really exciting. I mean, I turned down several other bigger projects to do that one because I just thought it would, with Macon and Peter Dinklage playing the Toxic Avenger, that it was going to be so special, and it is, and I can't wait for the world to see it, because the film festival screenings were amazing. People really loved it for the right reasons. And Macon Blair did so many really smart decisions, and I can't wait for it. And yeah, there's gonna be fans of the original, and there's gonna be just new fans.
I'm very excited. I'm going to ask this last question. Do you have a guilty pleasure? Is there something that's maybe a little embarrassing, maybe a little silly, that you go to decompress to in somewhere in film or television that you enjoy just to make yourself feel better?
I mean, I watch a lot of YouTube, and I go down rabbit holes of YouTube, I literally see something and then I'll just go down a rabbit hole. I mean, I watch this, there's this one thing about this family that does logging in Pennsylvania, logging capital yard. So it's just something about it's interesting, and I watch it. So I do a lot of that. So that's like that one thing. I mean, the show Ballers, I really enjoyed. Like, I thought that was a guilty pleasure to me. Like, I mean, I'm not really a football fan per se, but I really love kind of the whole aspect of it. And the half-hour format, and just kind of like, it was fun. And I the characters, and the fact they were like mixing real people with the fictional story. I mean, Succession started out as maybe that. I mean, it's such a quality show and quality writing, but it's not the type of show that I normally would watch. Just, but it became a show that I think I normally would watch, if that makes any sense. It wasn't, the setup of it is a little looser than most of the things I like. I like movies that are serious. I like drama and but Succession was just so kind of, it took me a little bit to get into it, and when I did, I was hooked. And so, I call that, it's a bit of a guilty pleasure for the material that I normally watch,
Sure.
But yeah, the YouTube thing is just like sucked me in. I mean, it's hard to get off of YouTube. I watch sailing videos. I watch, I go down the rabbit hole of like music, some 70s music song, and all of a sudden I'm just stuck on 70s music. So like, that's a really great decompression of after a day of work, or in between episodes directing, for sure.
I started watching on YouTube young pilots take off their first solo flight. It's the most, it almost makes me cry every single time. They're so excited to be flying in a plane by themselves for the first time. It's fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, who knew that that's something that's interesting, and and especially in a television format where there's so much to live and die. It's like, it's got to be perfect. It's got to be this. It's got to be that. Where you go to YouTube and there's just this normal person doing this random thing, and you just can't get enough of it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much again, Dana, for taking this time to join us today. That's it for this week. You can check us out at filmmakeru.com, or follow us on Instagram at filmmaker_u. I am Chad Anderson. Thank you so much for watching.